How do we learn how to treat others? Can prejudice be learned and can it be unlearned? And
Oh boy.
what would that look like in a third grade classroom? Welcome
Oh,
to Psych
no.
Papers, a podcast of bad content in which we discuss controversial and interesting psychological studies each episode, and we follow it up with our own empirical research. In the second half of the episode, we'll discuss our own follow-up research about how attitudes toward diversity in Disney fandom interact. So stick around
my
for
gosh.
that. I am Chris. This is my co-host, Joseph. And today we'll be talking about the Blue Eyes, Brown Eyes study.
Oh no, I know this one, Chris. This is like out of all the ones we've done so far. We've talked about this actually off podcast, off mic.
This is a good one. I like this one. I liked reading this because there's a whole story to it. There's a whole like background. You can see the follow-up on like what happens to the researcher's life afterward. She's still alive today. Jane Elliot, in 1968, conducted a study with her third grade class that would soon lead her to be considered the forerunner of diversity training. This study became so prolific that it caused her to give up school teaching and become a full-time public speaker against discrimination. And this was in the 70s when this stuff was still kind of unheard of at the time. Okay, so what was the study? Joseph, you said you're familiar with it.
Oh, this is like a test now. Okay, Dr. Cole.
Well, you said you were familiar. I wanted to give you a chance to maybe.
From just my recollection of this is, in her classroom, she separates or she divides the class into two groups, and I forget what the groupings are. I think it might be by eye color. And I think she gives one of the groups power over the other. Is that a good summation of what that is?
That's exactly it, and it's about blue eyes versus brown eyes.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So Jane Elliot asked her third grade class. Mind you, this study was conducted the day after MLK Jr. was assassinated.
Oh my gosh!
So it was very timely. Yeah. So the day after, Jane Elliot asked her third grade class if they think they know what it would feel like to be judged by the color of their skin. And she suggested that the only way for them to know what it would be like is to actually experience it themselves. So she told her students.
Hold on. She woke up that morning after hearing that news, just like on a mission. Is like, I have an idea. You rip up all the fucking math books. Who needs
huge
fucking
light bulb?
Yeah. Fucking ripped up the fucking reading.
Oh, my kids are gonna learn something today.
You know what? Throughout the books today, class, we're gonna learn a little bit about life.
Yeah. No math, no English, no science. We're gonna learn about racism.
Oh my gosh.
So the setup of the study was that she told her students, her third grade students, I'm just gonna keep reminding this. She told her third grade students that people with blue eyes are better and smarter than people with brown eyes. She told them that, to your point, she set up a bunch of rules and kind of made some segregation and discrimination within the class. She told them that brown-eyed people do not get to use the drinking fountain. They have to use paper cups.
Oh boy.
I would prefer paper cups, honestly, but I guess at that time, water fountain was better. I don't know.
A water fountain is still a bad choice to this day.
Water fountains are kind of gross nowadays. I try to avoid them at all costs. If they have the water filter thing, I'm all about that. She told them that brown-eyed people are not allowed to play with blue-eyed people on the playground. And the kicker, she even made the brown-eyed people wear like these fabric collars so that people could identify them as brown eyes. Oh my God,
I don't remember this. I remember this part of the study.
It was like this kind of puffy like fabric collar. And then so finally, blue-eyed people got to go to lunch first and get seconds if they wanted. Brown-eyed people were not. Okay, so these were the rules that she set up for her classroom, right? And almost immediately, there were so many examples of prejudice, right? So at recess, the blue and the brown-eyed people, the blue and the brown-eyed third grade students stayed away from each other. And the kids said it felt like, quote, Mrs. Elliot was taking our best friends away from us. Because friends that played together before, if they didn't have matching eye colors, they didn't play together anymore. 2 kids were fighting at recess, and later on in class, they had to explain why they were fighting. And one kid said, "Russell called me names and I hit him in the gut." Teacher says, "What did he call you?" "Brown eyes."
Oh no! Clearly, I don't know the details of the study.
and all of the other kids were like, "They always call us that." I was like, "Oh my god! Shut up, brown eyes." Where like that becomes the slur. That becomes the insult.
Look at little brown eyes, and he's so uppity to be near us, the blue-eyed people.
Oh, brown eyes thinks he can play basketball, huh?
Hey, brown eyes, skedaddle, okay? This is
We
our playground
all know
now.
brown eyes can't jump, all right?
This is my dodgeball. Yeah. We know brown eyes can't drive. Don't even.
They like pick up other stereotypes randomly.
Yeah, they start yeah.
The next day, one of the blue-eyed kids conveniently forgot to bring his glasses to school the next day because he wants to show off his blue eyes.
Oh.
And the teacher asked him like, "Hey, like, why aren't you wearing your glasses today?" He's like, he's all smiling and laughing. He's like, "I guess I forgot." Like, eyes wide open. Yeah.
He's just like, yeah, I guess I forgot, guys. Yep. Kids, I love kids.
He wanted
kids
to show his blue eyes.
This is like the perfect study to do because, like, for adults, there's other stuff embedded in there, but for children are so pure and so just like matter of
fact. And they'll
fact.
just buy into like, hey, blue eyes are better than brown eyes. They're like, okay, cool, down, bet.
Sick. Yeah, bet.
Wait, which color eyes do I have? Blue? Okay, cool.
Sick.
All right, so the blue-eyed people became arrogant, bossy, and mean toward the brown-eyed people.
Oh no.
The blue-eyed people even scored better grades on tests and completed math and reading tests that had seemed outside of their ability before. Whereas the brown-eyed people turned timid, subservient, and even scored more poorly on tests and even isolated themselves during recess. The researcher said within a day, she saw cooperating, fun-loving best friends turn into vicious, discriminating third graders.
You did this.
She's like, nah, man, society did this.
I had nothing to do with it.
I'm just a facilitator. All right, you ready for a plot twist?
Okay. Yeah.
All right. The next day, she told the class, "Psych, I lied to all of you. I lied when I said that blue eyes are better than brown eyes. I was lying. Actually, people with brown eyes are better than people with blue eyes. So every brown-eyed person that's wearing a collar, take off your collar and put it on a blue-eyed person." And all of the kids got up like so excitedly to rip their collar off and immediately like strap it onto a blue-eyed person.
Kids are so easy to fool sometimes. Oh my god, just like
you can just flip them.
You forgot? Yay! I've been miserable for the past week, but now things have changed for me.
Okay, so now that you pulled the Uno reverse card on them.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. She told them, okay, now it's switched. Now brown-eyed people get 5 extra minutes at recess. Blue-eyed people are not allowed on the playground equipment. Again, they're still not allowed to play with each other. And she told them that brown-eyed people are better and smarter than blue-eyed people. Now,
and then she slinked back in her chair like Mr. Burns.
Yeah. And she pulled out her popcorn.
Yeah. Now just
yeah. Cameras keep rolling.
Yeah. Someone woke up and just wanted chaos today.
I know. She chose violence.
Oh my gosh. All right.
One of the crazy parts is that she ran exercises with students, her third grade students, and the brown-eyed people who were currently in the superior class, the brown-eyed people completed the exercises faster than the day before when they were in the inferior class.
Curious.
And so the blue-eyed people who were currently inferior took longer on the exercises. And she asked them why. And they said, "We're dumb." And they said that they were distracted because they were thinking about their collars.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
This is some fucking mild child abuse. I guess we'll go
But
into that later.
it's not mild.
Dude,
I mean,
this
she's
is
not
fucking...
straight up hitting them. I mean, well, hold on. I take that back.
It's like
This was 1968. She had a yardstick ready to go for any of them. She separated, blue-eyed people sit here, brown-eyed third grade students, you sit here. And this was when the brown-eyed students were inferior. One of the blue-eyed kids was like, "Oh, Mrs. Elliot, like, you better keep that yardstick by them because the brown-eyed people might start acting up."
Oh my god!
And I was like, "Oh, that's because they would hit kids with yardsticks."
That's right. I totally forgot. Hey, I live in a bubble, baby. I am a bubble baby.
Hey,
BB.
You're a bubble boy. You're a beautiful bubble boy.
Bubble boy. BBB. Triple B.
One interesting piece of that is that when after the reversal and the brown-eyed people were now superior, while the brown-eyed people, the third grade students, did taunt the blue-eyed people in similar ways that occurred the previous day, it was much less intense because they were coming from a perspective of subservience, and they were like, "Okay, I know how it feels. I'm not going to be as bad."
They had empathy.
They had perspective, yeah, and empathy, yeah. And they had firsthand experience on what it felt like being in the lower class. So they were like, I mean, I still got my power. I'm going to use it, but I'm not going to be as cruel to you as you were to me. At the end, she had a very nice call-in response with the class where she was asking the class, should the color of your eyes have anything to do with how you treat people? And they all go, no. Should the color of their skin? No. Should you judge people by the color of their skin? No. Does it make any difference whether their skin is black or white or yellow or red? 1968. No. Is that how you decide whether people are good or bad? And all the children go, no. And then all the children start hugging each other again, blue-eyed and brown-eyed alike. And they're all and Mrs. Elliot, she's like, now aren't you guys glad to be all back together and friends again? And everyone's like, yeah. Everyone has their arms around each other. It was a nice scene. All right, so what do you think the reception to this study was like?
Probably not good. Probably just like race relations were a little risky, and these are like even during that period of time, just like what are you doing to our kids? So
yeah,
at least hit them.
Jesus, hit them. Don't fucking psychologically torture them.
Yeah, I don't think this went over well, did it, Chris?
No, the reception was quite poor.
Yeah, okay,
it was quite poor.
Yeah.
So the study got picked up by the Associated Press, and she went on The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson, where she spoke about the study. After her appearance, she received a ton of backlash from her fellow teachers and community members. One negative letter that she received stated, quote, "How dare you try this cruel experiment out on white children? Black children grow up accustomed to such behavior. But white children, there's no way they could possibly understand it. It's cruel to white children and will cause them great psychological damage," end quote.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So she was saying like, she was, it's funny because like,
the most self-aware thing ever.
there's like, from not looking at like a social issues perspective, from purely a research perspective, like this could be a valid research critique of being like, oh, there's a systematic difference in the two samples that you're trying to compare. That's kind of what she's trying to state, but of course it's rooted in racism. She's saying like it's related to racism. She's saying, well, black children are used to being subservient. White children are not used to being subservient.
Yeah.
So there's a problem. So there's a problem with your research methodology. Like she pushes up her glasses,
and then she's like at the end, like, but I don't like black people.
It's like she's trying to make a valid like research critique, which in like any other circumstance that's not trying to compare like how different races of children grow up, like maybe. But in this case, it's just a disguise for like racism. Yeah. And also, let's say black children were more accustomed to such behavior. Like, what the fuck? That's more fucked up.
I
Like,
know.
that's not helping your
why
case.
I was like, you know, I know. It's just like the most self-aware thing as you're writing. Like, did you not understand the purpose of this? The whole point of her doing this.
Yeah. It's like I don't think
the point.
I don't think you
like,
got
missed.
the message. Yeah. Right over her head.
Yeah.
Over time, though, her experiment received more and more publicity to the point where she's receiving prizes. She's starring in documentaries, books, and talk shows. Yeah. She would eventually go on to start delivering diversity trainings at large corporations where she gave a modified version of the classroom experiment. So she would take a multiracial group and then she would divide them based on the color of their eyes and then subject the blue-eyed people to an oppressive and degrading host of activities. In only a few hours, the treatment, the kind of blue-eyed, brown-eyed treatment, it made the blue-eyed workers become distracted and despondent, stumbling over even the simplest commands. The takeaway from the study was that prejudice is learned, and anything that can be learned can be unlearned.
So if you're brought up with that understanding, in your family, in your community, reinforced by your friends and their behaviors, of course you would grow up with this distrust or misunderstanding of the other person based on however they identify themselves, right?
Correct. Yeah.
That explains a lot to like maybe like when people move. And I don't know what the validity is. I'm just like speculating. But like if you grew up in a very conservative area with traditional conservative values, um, and then you grew up with like maybe some homophobic tendencies or like misunderstanding of other races that are not necessarily racist. It's like you move to a more urban area where you are more introduced to these type of people, and that probably your misconceptions or stereotypes have probably decreased, right? So like for example, if you didn't grow up with a lot of Asian people, what's your conception of Asian people? Probably like media representation, right? Or like the foreign kids that that travel to your small city to study there for whatever reason, right? You get these tokenized kids. So when you like are actually
English is probably their second language.
Yeah. So this is your conception of people that are Chinese or whatever, right? And then you go to like a more urban area where like there's a lot more Americanized folks. It must be like a big change in like how you have to perceive or adjust, right?
Yeah. Usually, I feel like this is my take is that most racism, when you get children that grow up in like towns that are kind of more prone to racism, let's say, and the person ends up becoming racist, it's usually it stems from a place of just like ignorance and not like malice. It usually stems from just like not having a lot of exposure to different groups of people. Whereas if you're growing up in a city, like a diverse city that has a bunch of different types of people, it would be really hard to raise a child in that city and have them come out racist. Just because they're getting constant exposure to a bunch of different types of people every day, that it would be hard to form a caricature or a stereotype of them. Whereas if you have no Asians in your small town, and you watch, TV, or, if it's the 70s and the only TV you watch, it's kind of, these caricatures of Asians, like that's what you're going to think of them. Like
That's all
it makes sense. It's logical. It's not, you can't blame them for not having more like diverse experiences because they just didn't grow up that way.
Yeah. Just to be clear, it's not right, if you do have those prejudices, but it's sort of, you could sort of understand and see why that would be the case, right? That
Correct.
someone would have this perception. Gotcha.
This is the part of the episode where we talk about the follow-up research that we conducted. So this episode was about prejudice and opinions on diversity. So Disney has been an interesting topic surrounding diversity recently. Disney has received a lot of backlash for altering the races of characters in their movies. So,
oh my gosh.
I wanted.
Oh no.
You said we needed more serious research. Monkeys doing hard drugs wasn't serious enough for you. I get it. I hear you.
Yeah, this was our feedback session. Oh God.
Okay, so I wanted to explore, how does Disney fandom relate to attitudes around diversity in fairy tales?
Whoa, this is give me a little perked up for this one, buddy.
This is a little hot tamale.
Yeah.
So I wanted to measure attitudes to include more diversity in traditional fairy tales. So this was the construct that I was interested in. How much do people believe that traditional fairy tales should include diversity? So I used 3 items to measure this. So the first item was, they responded to a statement: I believe traditional fairy tales should be retold with more diverse racial characters. Statement 2: the inclusion of racially diverse characters in traditional fairy tales is important to me. And third statement, and the final one: in my opinion, it is necessary to update traditional fairy tales to include more racially diverse characters.
Okay.
So they responded to all of these on different scales, and I averaged the 3 items to create one measure of basically how positive are their attitudes toward diversity in fairy tales. Next, I needed to measure, how much of a Disney fan are you? I went through a lot of iterations on this. I was like, should I give people quizzes, like show people a picture and be like, which Disney princess is this? Like,
or send them a BuzzFeed quiz beforehand, and then and like when you're done with that, just email me the results and then take this.
Yeah. I was like, should it be like a knowledge-based quiz? Should I just ask them like, hey, do you like Disney? Like, I didn't know what to do, but I figured it out. They responded to these 3 items. To what extent do you enjoy watching Disney movies? How often do you find yourself rewatching Disney movies? And please rate your level of excitement for upcoming Disney movie releases. Okay. So again, I averaged these 3 items together so I could get one measure of basically Disney fandom. So we have 2 measures. One is how strong is their attitude that we should include more diversity in traditional fairy tales. And then the other is, how much of a Disney fan are they? Okay. You have any guesses for how they relate?
Oh man. I want to say this before we get into there's a lot of discourse about this, right? And I guess depending where you are on the internet, your opinion can get swayed one way or another. Is that sort of an accurate? Because I feel that in places where more left-leaning people might be, I'm sure they're skewed more to diversity. But I feel like those people are also people that are not as big Disney fans.
Ooh, interesting. Why?
Yeah. I don't think you being a leftist or wanting diversity, like I feel like if you're like if I think of a Disney fan and I think of the Disney fan as any like fan of anything, there's like a certain purity to it, I think, that needs to be retained. I think of Star Wars. I think of like Lord of the Rings. That's also having a diversity problem too in the releases about like the elves or whatever, in depictions of that. So I feel like if you really like something and you want it to be pure to the source material, then you might want diversity in general, but maybe not in your narratives.
Yeah. That is a great point. So for this one, I kind of had like competing hypotheses where that was one of them. Whereas if you're a bigger Disney fan, you probably want to keep the Disney stories that you love and grew up with like pure, and you want them to be as you remembered them. I was like, okay, that's one hypothesis.
Right.
The other is that Disney fans are, this was just my guess, is that Disney fans are probably more left-leaning and probably more progressive. I don't know why. Don't ask me why. I just
a feeling
it just feels that way. I don't know. Yeah. And so that they would be more inclined to be more positive feeling toward diversity in fairy tales. So we surveyed over 300 people and found that as Disney fandom increases, so do attitudes on increasing diversity in fairy tales.
Whoa.
This was quite significant with a fairly large effect size. So that's an R squared of 0.23, meaning for the stats people, that 23% of the variance that you see in this scatter plot, 23% of that is determined by Disney fandom. We're looking at a positive slope between Disney fandom on the x-axis, and on the y-axis is attitudes toward adding diversity to fairy tales. So there's a positive slope that we're looking at. So as you become more of a Disney fan, your attitudes toward adding diversity in fairy tales also increases. So they increase together. As Disney fandom increases, so do attitudes on increasing diversity in fairy tales. So what does this mean? Okay, there are many potential implications for this. Just to call it out, we don't know which one though. This is just correlational data. We don't know which of these is the reason why it's causing these things. Correlation is not causation, blah, blah, blah. We all know that.
Yeah.
I'm going to speculate on some potential explanations for this data.
This is the BuzzFeed portion of the podcast.
Yes. This is the pop in pop psych. This is This is why you're watching.
This is the interesting stuff. Yeah, you were looking for
data is only so interesting. Yeah. All right. Okay, so I was trying to figure out, okay, what are all the potential implications and kind of explanations for this pretty steep positive correlation? There are causal explanations. And I know correlation does not equal causation. Here, I'm just going to outline the two possibilities. I don't know which one, but maybe being a bigger Disney fan actually increases attitudes toward adding diversity to fairy tales. So perhaps exposure to more Disney movies, which have especially recently been featuring a more diverse cast of characters, perhaps that actually makes people develop a greater appreciation for diversity. Okay, another potential explanation, causal explanation, is that maybe it's the exact other way, that's the reverse. Having attitudes toward adding diversity to fairy tales actually increases one's Disney fandom. So Disney has made efforts in recent years to promote diversity and inclusivity in its storytelling. And perhaps the more progressive people become with diversity in fairy tales, the more they come to appreciate Disney for its efforts. All right. Okay. So those are two potential causal explanations. Just on this data alone, we don't know which direction. We don't know what's causing what. Maybe it's something completely else, which we can go into. Okay. Maybe there are mere associative explanations in that maybe people don't like Disney because of the diversity in Disney movies, and vice versa. That people actually like Disney movies because of the diversity. Okay, and finally, there are, as like any study, there are third variable explanations. So maybe there's something else at play that we're not measuring. So maybe it's personality. Maybe Disney attracts certain personality types that are more progressive. This aligns with my non-scientific gut feeling. Just based off of the Disney fans that I know.
More left. Yeah.
I'm gonna need to think about that one more, but that's what I'm going with. And then the last one is potentially age. Again, this is my gut. I think Disney fans tend to be younger, and younger fans tend to be more progressive. Ipso facto, more Disney fandom equals more attitudes toward diversity. And then the last explanation is that maybe there's just something else that we don't know about that's influencing all of this.
Oh yeah, the one thing we can probably agree upon is that them making a more concerted effort when it comes to diversity, and it just goes broadly to most like businesses. It's just more profitable, right? This generates more income. Like there's something to say when like companies take stances on diversity or other like social. I mean, there's a whole dialogue about this, especially when it was like during 2020. Investing in the diversity and inclusivity, they must have done the math to be like, oh, we make more money. like this is the broadest reach of people that we can reach regarding these things.
So this last third variable explanation, age. Disney fans tend to be younger, and younger people tend to be more progressive. I also asked people how old they are, as I do on a lot of these surveys. And I was like, okay, I wonder, how does Disney fandom change as people get older? And how do attitudes toward adding diversity into traditional fairy tales, how does that change as you get older? And as you would expect, as age increases, Disney fandom and attitudes on increasing diversity in fairy tales slightly decrease. This was a much weaker correlation compared to the data that we just saw on Disney fandom and attitudes on diversity in fairy tales, but it was still significant. Both were. So as you get older, you become slightly less of a Disney fan, and as you get older, you become slightly less keen on diversity in fairy tales. The Disney fandom and attitudes toward increasing diversity in fairy tales did not significantly differ by gender. That's why I didn't include the results here. There's no, whether you're male or female, you're all nerdy Disney fans, and you all equally love or dislike diversity. Leave you with this: as Disney fandom increases, so do attitudes on increasing diversity in fairy tales. So I think that's pretty interesting. I was surprised at how steep this slope was and how significant it was. And so it's kind of Disney could take two approaches to this, right?
With this data,
Disney, if you're watching, just give credit, please. of our survey of 300 people. Please make very important business decisions based off of bad content.
Can't they just copy our research questions and run the same study with just a higher sample size?
Can they plagiarize? Yeah, they can. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, they can. Hey, no one talks about plagiarism in research, Chris. They always talk about that and in comedy,
that's in academia, that's called research scooping, or that's at least how I've heard it called.
Oh, research scooping? What's
so
this is a thing?
So people will go to conferences. People will go to conferences, and now people are privy to it. So you don't present a research idea unless it's already fully fleshed out and almost ready to publish.
Oh my gosh.
Because if you present an idea being like, hey, I'm thinking about this cool thing that I want to research next year, another professor with more resources and more time and more money might be like, oh, that's a cool idea. I'm going to run that study in the next 3 months because I have the funds and resources to do that. And then they publish before you and get all the credit for it. Yeah.
Wow.
So people are very protective of their ideas now. Yeah.
That makes sense. Well, I mean, even just working with you, coming up with a research idea or question, it's hard. It's one thing to have a general idea, but to figure out the methodology for that takes some effort and thinking and know how to figure out how to do that right.
Yeah. Especially when you're working with grants and research institutions and you're collecting human participants that are taking an hour of their day, you're going to spend at least a year on this project. It's got to be good and fleshed out. And if somebody can do that work for you and give you an idea, hell yeah, anyone's going to take that. You'd be dumb not to.
Take it? Yeah.
All right, so I guess Disney could cater to their fans and be like, hey, if you don't want diversity in fairy tales, you're not even a Disney fan. We're not concerned about your opinion.
They're marketing not a real fan. You're not a real fan.
Hey, fuck y'all.
And you're a little racist, you blue-eyed fuckers.
You guys don't even like Disney? Man, get the fuck out of here.
Why is the kid from the classroom here? He works at Disney now?
Hey, I'm Johnny. Hey, on the streets they call me Blue Eyes Johnny, okay?
Johnny brought his racism to Disney. Oh no.
All right, you guys don't like Disney? Get the fuck out of here.
Oh no, he's mean in the other way.
The other option Disney could take is maybe these are potential Disney fans. Maybe if we didn't add diversity to our fairy tales, maybe these people would be fans. Doubt. doubt. I don't think that's what's stopping people from being Disney fans. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I think there's a whole bunch of other things that are stopping people before diversity even like makes a place on the list of things. All right. If you're still watching, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. We hope you guys found this interesting. So this was the Brown Eyes, Blue Eyes study on third graders. This teacher messed up some third graders with some pretty cool findings.
Pretty sick.
Still a little messed up. Not cool, Ms. Elliot. Not cool.
But hey, we appreciate
and we learned a little.
Yeah.
We appreciate you so much.
Yeah.
Still not that cool. Still, a little messed up. Anyways. And then we also learned about Disney fandom and how that interacts with attitudes on adding diversity in fairy tales. And we learned that as you become more of a Disney fan, you become more positive toward adding diversity in fairy tales. Ain't that interesting?
Yeah.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.